Chapter 1. At 2 in the morning, William came home. As soon as William pushed the door open and entered, we stared at each other in silence, neither of us willing to speak first. His gaze fell on the table cluttered with takeout boxes. He snatched the crispy pork knuckle and cheese puffs from my hands and tossed them into the trash bin. Eat, eat, eat. All you know is eating. If you keep this up, you'll turn into a fat hippo. The last time he said something like this was a year ago when Emma had just returned from abroad. He lavished her with praise in front of me and then turned around to mock me, saying I looked like a fat hippo. From that day on, I ate a year's worth of diet food. Seeing that I didn't respond, he threw a set of branded shapewear onto me. Emma bought this especially for you. See how considerate she is. She said if you don't accept her apology, she'll delete her Weibo account. I glanced at the label on the shapewear, which read, "Enhance your beautiful figure," and couldn't help but laugh. Emma certainly knew how to get under my skin. William saw me laughing and thought I had calmed down. He handed me the phone on the table. Emma is so thoughtful. Aren't you going to thank her? I ignored him and continued watching TV. Olivia, are you deaf? He yanked me up and I lost my balance, falling to the ground. In an unfortunate twist, my waist collided with the corner of the table. It hurt so much. The injury on my waist was from 7 years ago, during that fire when I saved William and got hit by a falling beam. I clutched my waist, trembling in pain. William looked at me with a hint of guilt. I'll get the ointment. I glanced at his retreating back, wanting to call out to stop him but held back. There was an ultrasound report in the drawer which had been there for 3 days. The doctor had specifically advised me to keep a positive mood during early pregnancy and to be cautious with medication, especially topical ointments. I had planned to tell him about our new family member during the Mid-Autumn Festival, but now it seemed unnecessary. William hurriedly brought the first aid kit and rummaged through it but soon stopped. The ointment is gone. Did you? He trailed off mid-sentence and I saw a fleeting guilty expression on his face. I suddenly remembered Emma's response to a netizen on Weibo. He's such a warm guy. When I accidentally burned myself while cooking, he immediately got ointment for me. If what had just happened hadn't occurred, I would have questioned William about whether he had used the imported ointment I had gotten for Emma. But this time I let it go. I smiled wryly. William, stop searching. I'll go buy some. He looked at me seriously. How can you go out in this state? Stay home. I'll go. Before he could finish, his phone rang. He glanced at it and immediately answered. Emma, what's wrong? On the other end, Emma's tearful voice came through. William, I'm feeling down and went to a bar to drink. Some strange men approached me and threatened to hurt me if I didn't leave with them. William, can you come save me? Please. William threw the first aid kit onto the sofa and stood up abruptly. Emma, don't be scared. I'm coming right away. Thank you, William, but you shouldn't come. Your wife would be angry. I'll figure something out. She has no right to be angry. He shot a cold glance at me, still curled up on the floor. After hanging up, he hurriedly headed for the door. William, wait. I quickly called out to him. Olivia, can't you stop making a fuss? You're forgetting your phone and wallet. How are you going to save her? I pointed to the sofa. His phone and wallet were lying quietly next to the first aid kit. William glanced at the first aid kit, paused for a moment. I'll go save Emma first, then take you to the hospital when I get back. With that, he rushed out the door. Morning came and William still hadn't returned. The pain had grown unbearable, so I finally called for an ambulance. While waiting for it to arrive, I scrolled through Weibo and stumbled upon Emma's latest post. She wrote about how she had been harassed by some thugs at a bar and how William had arrived just in time to save her, even getting punched in the process. She expressed how touched she was by his actions. Attached to the post was a photo of Emma tearfully applying ointment to William, accompanied by the caption, "Love can overcome all obstacles and face any challenge." The comments were filled with responses like, "How can you resist such a handsome man? Girl, are you sure about your orientation?" Another comment read, "Exactly. If he were in front of me, I'd also be treating his wounds, though my methods might differ." Emma replied with a smug emoji, "What's the rush? He'll be mine eventually." A zealous netizen even posted a video in the comments saying, "Wow, what a coincidence. I saw you guys too." The video showed Emma crying pitifully while William scolded the thugs, holding her protectively as they left the bar together. The way he looked at her was soft and filled with concern. I suddenly remembered an incident from 2 weeks ago when William had invited a group of people to a club for drinks. When I arrived at the club, no one else had shown up yet. William said he had some urgent company matters to handle and would join us shortly. Soon after, a man walked in. He was William's business partner, James. William often mentioned him, praising him for being a young and capable entrepreneur who had managed to complete 2 rounds of financing in just 2 years and was about to take his company public. James looked me up and down and moved closer to where I was sitting. "Sister-in-law, you're even more beautiful than William described." I was taken aback and was about to speak when he covered my mouth. "William said you have a great figure and are very obedient." James grabbed my hair, forcing me closer, whispering in my ear, "How obedient are you, sister-in-law?" I struggled desperately to push him away. James, seemingly angered, bit my neck hard. When I didn't make a sound, he pressed a freshly lit cigar against my collarbone. The burning pain made me shove him off and run out. I ran into the lobby and bumped into William and Emma. William acted as if he didn't see me, holding Emma as they walked past me. Emma turned back to wave at me smugly. She wore a dazzling heart-shaped yellow diamond necklace around her flawless white neck. I recognized that necklace immediately. William had bought it at a Sotheby's auction, saying he would give it to me during the Mid-Autumn Festival. Later, he said I was too fat and it wouldn't look good on me. William didn't come home until late at night, reeking of alcohol. "Olivia, what's your problem today? You left before everyone arrived. What's with the princess attitude?" Facing his scolding, I revealed the bite marks on my neck and the burn blisters on my collarbone. He was shocked and came over, showing concern. "Honey, does it hurt? How did you get hurt?" I told him everything that happened at the club and he sneered. "Olivia, what's the point of lying? If you're going to lie, at least make it believable. Why would James be interested in you? Did you use some trick to seduce him?" He dragged me by my hair to the mirror in the dressing room. The reflection showed me with disheveled hair and eyes swollen from crying. "Olivia, look in the mirror. Who would be interested in you? Look at the fat on your stomach. Isn't it disgusting?" After his outburst, he went back to the bedroom. I knelt in the dressing room and cried until morning. The next day, William gave me a Cartier diamond necklace as an apology. I thought that incident would be buried in my memory forever. But today, seeing the video in Emma's Weibo comments brought back the disgust and ridicule in William's eyes when he looked at me. The ambulance arrived and the paramedics lifted me onto a stretcher. While receiving treatment in the emergency room, I sent a text to my good friend Isabella. "Isabella, I'm getting a divorce." Chapter 3. After returning from the hospital, I stayed home to recuperate for a few days. I thought I could finally have some peace until a series of phone rings woke me up. Weakly, I answered the phone. On the other end, William's voice was cold. "I'm coming to pick you up for dinner." Before I could respond, he hung up. Thinking it would be best to try and coexist peacefully before the divorce, I got dressed and went out. Seeing my weary appearance, William suddenly remembered he had forgotten to buy the ointment. "The restaurant we're going to is near the hospital. I'll take you there first." "There's no need. It's been several days already and it's fine now." He let out a long breath of relief. I thought so too. After all, it's been 7 years. If it still hurts, it's just in your head. I gave a self-deprecating laugh. Yeah, it's been 7 years. Back then, I used all my strength to push William out of the fire while a collapsing beam pinned me down. I had 3 broken ribs and a fractured tailbone. Even after all these years, any small bump would cause unbearable pain. I never told William about the lingering effects, fearing he would feel guilty. I let him believe it was just my imagination. But we had been together for 7 years. If he truly loved and cared for me, how could he not know my pain? As he drove, William began recounting the events of that night. After I got Emma out, she was really scared. I stayed with her longer to make sure she was okay. "Don't overthink it." I stared coldly out the window. "I'm not overthinking. She's your secretary. It's only right for you to stay with her." William seemed dissatisfied with my response. He abruptly slammed on the brakes, causing my earphones to fall to the floor. As I bent down to pick them up, I found a swimsuit hidden under the seat. If this had happened half a month ago, I would have gone berserk, waving the swimsuit in his face. But now I just smiled, picked it up and placed it on the back seat. William looked uncomfortable. "Oh, that. It must have been left there by Emma after her swimming class." I nodded and continued gazing out the window. During dinner, a couple at the next table kept staring at us. Noticing my awareness of their gaze, the girl walked over. "Are you the CEO from Emma's Weibo posts? You look so handsome in person." William glanced at the girl. "Do you need something?" The girl, eager for gossip, asked, "Are you and Emma dating?" William looked at me, who was quietly eating, and then smiled at the girl. "Yes, Emma and I are dating." I smiled at the girl, feeling a sharp pain in my lower abdomen. The girl looked at me, puzzled. "Then who is she?" Without hesitation, William replied, "The maid." Chapter 4. Before leaving, the girl reluctantly told William, "I'll always support you too. You must get married." After she left, William turned to me and offered me a scoop of ice cream. "Darling, don't mind her. Emma's CEO Falls in Love with Me series on Weibo is very popular right now. It's good publicity for the company. You don't know how happy Emma is. If I undermine her efforts in private, she'll be heartbroken." I couldn't care less about his explanation. "I don't care. You don't need to explain." At that moment, the pain in my abdomen intensified. I clutched my stomach in agony, my face turning pale. On the way home, William received another call from Emma. "William, can you pick me up from the swimming pool? I'm wearing something a bit revealing and it's inconvenient for me to take a taxi. Please, please." Unable to resist her pleading, William chuckled indulgently. All right, I'm on my way." After hanging up, he held my hand and kissed it. "Darling, let's pick up Emma together. That way you won't overthink things." "William, you can't go. My stomach hurts. You need to take me to the hospital. Now." His face darkened at my words. "Olivia, can you stop being so melodramatic? I wanted to take you along to ease your mind, but now you're playing the sympathy card." "I'm not playing any games. Take me to the hospital. I'm not joking. It really hurts. Stop pretending. It doesn't even look real." Suddenly, I felt a warm, wet sensation. "I'm pregnant. My stomach hurts. It might be a threatened miscarriage. We need to go to the hospital now." William didn't believe me. He glared at me angrily. "You're pretending to be pregnant to deceive me now? We've been married for 4 years. Have we ever used protection? In these 4 years, you haven't gotten pregnant. But now, when I'm about to pick up Emma, you're suddenly pregnant." He grew more furious, slamming on the brakes. "Get out. Get out. Aren't you in a hurry to go to the hospital? Stomach hurting and bleeding, right? Get out. Stop wasting my time picking up Emma." "Fine, I'll get out." As I was about to step out, he yanked me back. "I've been too good to you, and now you're getting more and more disobedient. Let's get a divorce, William." He seemed taken aback by my words. "Divorce?" I nodded. "Isabella has already helped me prepare the divorce agreement." He released me, staring at me in shock. "Olivia, you really want to divorce me? Think carefully. Who else would want a pretentious woman like you? I've thought it through. Goodbye." With that, I attempted to get out of the car. Seeing my intention, he suddenly slammed on the gas. I was thrown out by the sudden acceleration. As onlookers screamed, I lay in a pool of blood, and William walked away without looking back. Blood spread beneath me, blooming like beautiful, vibrant flowers on the road to the underworld, surrounding me one by one. Chapter 5. When I woke up again, I found myself lying in a hospital bed. Isabella and William's parents were there, but William was not. William's father was trembling with rage. How did I end up with such a disgraceful son? He's an animal. William's mother was crying sorrowfully. Why isn't William answering his phone? His wife is hurt so badly. Isabella spoke up calmly from the side. "Olivia, we should call the police. William tried to kill you." William's mother immediately sat down beside my bed, stroking my hair. "Daughter-in-law, we are all family. Families go through rough patches, but William is a sensible child. He will definitely apologize to you." Just as Isabella was about to retort, I stopped her. "Isabella, could you get me something to eat? I'm starving." Isabella nodded and left the room. Now it was just me and William's parents in the room. I propped myself up with difficulty. "Dad, Mom, we're getting a divorce." William's parents almost fainted upon hearing my words. "Tianjin, divorce is not a trivial matter. If news of your divorce gets out, it will affect the family business as well. Daughter-in-law, William treats you so well. You can't make such a rash decision out of anger." A couple's bond deepens over time. Treats me well. Those 4 words pierced my heart like needles. Treats me well? Then why isn't he here at the hospital? William's parents looked at each other, unsure of what to say. Do you want to know what he's doing? I pulled out my phone from under the pillow and opened Emma's Weibo. Her latest post was a photo of her kissing William. The caption read, "Loving you is the bravest thing I've ever done." In the photo, Emma was wearing a swimsuit and William was kissing her passionately. They looked like a perfect couple. William's parents turned pale when they saw the photo. His father grabbed his phone and stormed out of the room. The air in the room seemed to freeze. "Daughter-in-law, I promise I'll discipline William. Can't you forgive him just this once for the sake of your years together?" I sighed. "Auntie, it's not just one mistake. William has repeatedly cheated on me and never considered my feelings. If your son-in-law cheated on your daughter, would you forgive him? I've been alone since childhood. My parents died early, but they taught me to distinguish right from wrong. If I can't even do that, how can I honor their teachings?" William's mother was silent, then sighed heavily. "Bitch." William kicked the door open and threw a bouquet of white roses at me. "How dare you deceive my parents with your pity act? Come on, let's go to the Civil Affairs Bureau and get divorced right now." "William, stop this." His mother stepped in front of him. "Mom, don't be fooled by her. She's just acting. I know her too well." I fell off the bed, breaking into a cold sweat, my chest tightening as if I couldn't breathe. Seeing this, Isabella rushed to call for a nurse. The nurse brought in a monitor and an oxygen tank. Once the oxygen mask was secured, I began to calm down. "Didn't you know the patient has asthma?" the nurse scolded. Isabella glared at William. Not only did he not know about her asthma, he tried to kill her. William stood there stunned. Looking at my weakened state, a hint of guilt appeared on his face. "Honey, I'm sorry. I didn't know you had asthma." I didn't blame him because I knew he no longer cared about me. Seeing that I was stabilizing, Isabella stormed over to William and slapped him hard. His parents didn't stop her, allowing her to vent her fury on their son. Isabella threw my medical records on the floor. "William, are you even a man? Tianjin was pregnant, and not only did you fail to take care of her, you tried to kill her. But now it's fine. The baby is gone and her uterus was removed. She won't have to suffer under your abuse anymore." William picked up the medical records, his hands trembling, tears falling one by one. Chapter 6. A week later, I was discharged from the hospital. The first thing I did was seek out William for a divorce. William refused to sign the papers. First, he said the company was too busy for him to spare the time. Then he claimed there were issues with the divorce agreement Isabella had drafted. He focused on the property division clauses. I wanted to leave without taking anything, but he insisted on compensating me. He knew I wasn't a gold digger, yet he used this to drag things out. He offered me 5.27 million yuan, hinting at the phrase, "I love my wife," 527 in Chinese. I refused. Then he proposed 13.14 million yuan, symbolizing forever, 1-3-1-4 in Chinese. I refused again. He figured that since I declined twice, I must still have feelings for him and didn't really want the divorce. I rolled my eyes at him. "William, are you out of your mind?" I said, "I don't want your money. I just want to leave with nothing." William poured me a cup of tea. "I know you're not after money, but I remember when we first got together. I wanted to start a business but didn't have the startup capital. You sold your family home to help me start my first company." He remembered. Back then, William was young and ambitious, unwilling to follow in his father's footsteps. He insisted on making his own way but lacked the funds. At the time, I was his loyal supporter, naturally willing to help him. The saying goes, "A loyal dog licks till it has nothing left." I took a sip of the tea and asked calmly, "So what?" With genuine sincerity, he said, "If you don't divorce me, I'll give you half of the company's shares." I stared at him in shock. "William, are you insane? In the car you were ready to divorce me. At the hospital you said you wanted a divorce. Now you're backtracking? Are you even a man?" He lowered his head, mumbling softly. "Honey, those were just words said in anger. You know I didn't mean it. You know me, Oh really? Didn't you also call me a fat hippo? Said no one would want an old, fat hippo and that you'd be better off after the divorce? Was that also said in anger?" William practically had his head buried in the carpet. "Yes, those were just words said in anger. I didn't mean them. I let out a cold laugh. That day at their company's annual meeting, Emma arrived dressed to the nines, and many employees were curious about my appearance. William took a sip of his whiskey and said, "There's nothing to be curious about. She's just an old fat hippo. Nowhere near as pretty as Emma." Emma clung to William, cooing, "William, show us a picture." William looked at her indulgently. "You're the most beautiful in my eyes. No need to look." Little did they know, someone recorded their conversation and sent it to me while I was in the elevator. When I arrived at the banquet hall, William mocked me. "Why are you dressed so tackily?" Then he took my hand and led me to our seats. As I flipped through the menu, I came across a dish I didn't understand. I tapped William. "Honey, what's the difference between white truffle and black truffle? Which one should I choose?" Sitting nearby, Emma deliberately said loudly, "Looks like the boss's wife hasn't eaten at Michelin-starred restaurants often. White truffle is much more expensive than black truffle. But you can't use chopsticks to eat white truffle." She then gave William a flirtatious wink. William glanced at me with slight disdain. "If you don't know, then keep quiet. Don't embarrass me." Later, I found out that William frequently took Emma to Michelin-starred restaurants. Chapter 7. That night after we got home, I waited for William to get in the shower. Then I quietly opened his WeChat chat history. Emma had messaged him, "William, did I speak too harshly today? The boss's wife didn't seem too happy." William replied, "It's fine. She always has that sour face." Emma, "William, I know this might be wrong to say, but I have to tell you, I think I've fallen for you." William didn't respond directly, only sending a shy emoji. I stormed into the bathroom holding his phone ready to confront him. He looked at me in horror. "Olivia, are you out of your mind?" With tears in my eyes, I asked, "Honey, have you fallen in love with Emma?" William turned off the shower, grabbed a towel to dry his hair, and smirked at me. "Yeah, I love her. So what? You want to leave me?" "William, you have no heart. I want a divorce." "Divorce? Fine. Let's do it tomorrow. Once we divorce, I'll be free. I'd love to see who'd want an old, ugly secondhand hippo like you." I cried my heart out. "William, how can you treat me like this?" William shrugged. "So what if I do? Go ahead and leave. It's not like you didn't know what I was like when you met me. If you can't handle it, get lost." He was right. I had known what kind of person he was for years. I had been a loyal, blind supporter for so long that I got used to it. His cold indifference. I thought it was charming aloofness. His hot and cold behavior. I thought it was playing hard to get. But now, shedding my identity as a loyal dog, I realized I had been living in a delusion, painting him with a golden light with my love. Determined, I decided to move out. When he saw me dragging my suitcase to the door, he blocked my way. "Don't go. If you find me annoying, I'll move out." I looked at the lavender blooming quietly in the backyard. I could smell their fragrance even from the doorway. I sighed, deciding to wait until the lavender's blooming season ended before moving out. William stood behind me and said softly, "Honey, I have to go abroad for business. If you still want a divorce when I get back, we'll do it." 4 days later, William called me. "Honey, I'm back. I'm right at the door. Can you let me in?" The moment William left for his trip, I had all the locks changed. I didn't tell him and had no intention of doing so. I said calmly, "I'm at the Blue Maple Club. Come find me here." I ordered a pot of Biluakan tea. Just as it was placed on the table, a voluptuous woman sat down across from me. It was Emma. Chapter 8. During the 3 days William was abroad, Emma couldn't find him and camped outside my house. Annoyed, I called security to chase her away. She ended up waiting at the entrance of the neighborhood, following me whenever I left. Emma looked haggard, her once bright eyes now dull and lifeless. I poured her a cup of Biluakan tea. She stared at me with wide eyes. "Did William contact you? Why is he ignoring me but reaching out to you?" I shrugged helplessly. "You should ask him that. What does it have to do with me?" Emma provocatively said, "Don't think you're so great just because you have the title of the boss's wife. Women like you, who are old and unattractive, will be discarded by William sooner or later." Seeing that I didn't respond, she took a sip of tea and continued, "I'm younger and prettier than you, and I know how to have fun. Have you looked in the mirror? How many times did William touch you this year?" I nodded. Yes, you're right. So please tell him to hurry up and divorce me and marry you quickly." After all, being a mistress for life isn't something to be proud of. Emma's eyes widened like marbles. Old hippo, who are you calling a mistress? I sighed and said quietly, I'm talking about myself. Feeling humiliated, Emma picked up her cup and threw the Biluakun tea in my face. I immediately stood up and poured an entire pot of Biluakun tea over her head. Emma screamed in pain and tried to hit me but was pushed aside by someone. Secretary Emma, what do you think you're doing? William stood there, his face icy with anger burning in his eyes. William, she poured tea on my face. It hurts, Emma is in so much pain. Emma cried pitifully. I didn't do anything. She's lying to blame me. I had grown bolder and dared to lie openly. But I hadn't expected William to start berating Emma. Secretary Emma, don't you know your place? Who gave you the audacity to act so recklessly? Even if my wife did pour tea on you, it's the boss's wife disciplining an employee, which is perfectly justified. Emma stared at William in shock. Seeing that he had no intention of comforting her, she covered her face and ran out crying. After Emma left, William sat down across from me. He wore a serious expression. Darling, Emma is just my secretary. We were only pretending. I don't like her. My heart has always belonged to you. I remained silent, waiting for him to sign the divorce papers. He ordered 2 Americanos and continued. At first, she tricked me into creating a new social media account to promote the company's new products. She said we needed to create a persona, so I went along with it. A lot of it was scripted. Nothing happened between us, I swear. As soon as he finished speaking, thunder rumbled, and the clear sky suddenly turned dark with storm clouds. I didn't want to argue with him, but his words piqued my curiosity. Nothing happened? You don't like her? Is sharing your daily life with her nothing? Is dropping everything to be by her side whenever she calls nothing? Is publicly humiliating me and praising her nothing? Is letting her leave her swimsuit in your car nothing? Is allowing her to post photos of you 2 kissing on social media nothing? If all of that is nothing, does it take catching you in bed with her for you to admit it? He started to speak, but I cut him off. William, I thought you came here to divorce me. I didn't expect you to use such disgusting excuses. Chapter 9. I stood up to leave, but he slapped the table. Tianjin, don't go yet. I have something to show you. He took out a crumpled piece of paper. I took it and realized it was a list of wishes I wrote in elementary school. Back then, our teacher had asked us to write down what we most wanted to do when we grew up. Most kids wrote a line or 2, but I had filled an entire page. William smiled and pointed to the words on the paper. Wife, don't divorce me. I'll help you fulfill each of these wishes, okay? You wrote that you wanted to see the lavender fields in Provence. We can go tomorrow, all right? You also said you wanted to learn free diving and then dive in Saipan. I'll learn with you, okay? And you said you wanted to. Enough. William. I interrupted his unrealistic fantasies. Do you know what my biggest wish used to be? William shook his head. My biggest wish was to marry you. I said calmly. Then I married you and found out it wasn't as happy as I imagined. So now I have a new wish, to divorce you and live freely. William, didn't you say you'd help me realize my wishes? William couldn't fulfill this wish. He repeatedly asked why I wanted a divorce. In the past, I always forgave him. Why was I suddenly so determined to leave? He couldn't understand. I suddenly remembered the sweet words he said to Emma and told him calmly, there's no deep reason. You're just getting old and I don't like old men. I prefer young, strong, handsome guys. Got it. He couldn't find a single word to counter me. I waited for a long time, but he still didn't sign. I went to the court with Isabella to file for divorce. The divorce proceedings were slow. It took more than half a year before the court notified me. At the courthouse entrance, I saw William with Emma clinging to his arm, her pregnancy clearly showing. It seemed they hadn't been idle in the past 6 months. Their progress was swift. When William saw me, he wore his usual cold, lifeless expression. Emma clung to his arm and carefully supported her belly, afraid of harming the precious baby inside. William walked quickly with his long legs and Emma struggled to keep up. The courthouse's tiled floor was slippery and she nearly fell several times. Feeling a bit sorry for her, I started to help her. My phone buzzed. It was a WeChat message from Emma. Sister Tianjin, you lost. I told you an old hippo can't beat me. I looked up at Emma. She was waiting for William at the door, and when she saw me looking at her, she smugly patted her belly. I turned to leave, but my phone buzzed again. Aren't you furious now? After all, I'm pregnant and you lost your uterus. You'll never be a mother. So sad. I heard women without a uterus age faster. Want me to recommend some cosmetic doctors? Her words felt like a knife in my throat. I replied, thanks. I hope you have twin boys this time, triplets the next, and quadruplets after that. I had intended to warn her to stay away from William, not to ruin her future on a whim. But now I realized I was being naive. All I could do was respect and bless her decision. Chapter 10. After leaving the court, I bought a villa in the suburbs. I particularly liked the backyard, which was large enough to be filled with my favorite lavender. I hadn't lived there long when a sudden, urgent knock on the door woke me up. Groggy, I got up and went to the door where a disheveled woman stood. Her eyes were dull, but she looked somewhat familiar. Jane Sue, it's been years, but I finally found you. I was stunned. Who are you? Don't you remember? 7 years ago, I set a fire at Ethan Williams' house and you saved him. I still remember how badly you got hurt when that beam fell on you. She smiled faintly as if lost in the memory of that day. Instinctively, I took a step back. Who are you? How do you know about the fire 7 years ago? I had always thought the fire was an accident. After I was taken to the hospital, Ethan's parents took care of everything while I recovered. By the time I was discharged, everything was settled. My name is Rebecca. You should remember me. Rebecca, I did remember her. She was the beauty queen of our university. I had seen her a few times, stunning and talented, her sweet smile capable of dispelling any gloom. I looked closely at the disheveled woman in front of me. Apart from her still beautiful eyes, she no longer had any of the brightness she once possessed. Rebecca told me that she met Ethan during a debate competition. After their first encounter, Ethan confessed he had a girlfriend, but she couldn't let go of her feelings and decided to stay with him despite everything. 2 years passed, and Rebecca's jealousy grew worse until she was diagnosed with severe depression. She wanted to end her life and take Ethan with her, which is why she set the fire at his house. I stood there stunned. So from that moment, Ethan had already betrayed our vows and our love. For those who cheat, there's only once or countless times. And Ethan's parents, who knew everything, acted as if nothing had happened. Thinking of their fake concern for me, I felt a wave of nausea. Rebecca asked how Ethan was doing. I told her that he had a new woman in his life and was about to become a father. She asked me tearfully, why? Why does he get to live happily while I've become this wretched? I patted her shoulder. You need to move on. It's not worth staying stuck in the past. You deserve better, Rebecca. Rebecca sighed. Jane Sue, I really admire you. You let go of 7 years of feelings just like that. I was about to reply, but she turned and left. The next morning, the news was all over TV and social media. A woman had attacked a couple outside a hospital, resulting in 1 death and 1 injury. I clicked on the video, which showed a bystander's footage. In the video, Ethan and his new partner, Lily Emma, were arguing outside the hospital. As Lily was about to speak, Ethan slapped her. She instinctively held her stomach and knelt, begging him not to leave. Rebecca appeared in the video carrying a large handbag. She pulled out a knife, pushed Lily aside, and aimed at Ethan's neck. Blood gushed out and bystanders scattered like frightened birds. Rebecca laughed maniacally, finally completing the revenge she had sought for 7 years.